Last night, my fiancé and I met up with two of my friends from high school to drink and play board games. My two high school friends, I'll call them C and W, were determined to get my fiancé drunk as it was their first time meeting him. We were at W's house for the night, and C volunteered to sleep on the couch, while my fiancé and I took the guest bedroom. After quite a few hours of drinking, my fiancé felt sick, so we decided to go to bed in the guest bedroom. For some reason, I was too anxious to fall asleep. I only was able to fall asleep around 7 a.m. the next morning. In my dream, I was woken up to C and W talking in the hallway outside of the bedroom door. C was saying goodbye, and as I closed my eyes again, I heard his car leaving the driveway. W asked through the door if my fiancé and I were awake. I remember very sleepily saying, "No, not yet." I fell back asleep until an hour or so later, when an older woman came in the room and woke us up. As she woke us, I heard what sounded like W getting sick and even crying in the bathroom across the hall. She looked at me and said,
"Hey y'all, W isn't feeling too good, so y'all might want to pack it up and leave soon."
I remember her voice pretty distinctly, and she had a thick southern accent that sounded more of Mississippi or Alabama than the part of Louisiana that we're from. She had short white hair, and her eyebrows were penciled on the way southern ladies like to do it. She had said some other things to us, but I can't remember what they were. She was really sweet and kind about it, and helped us pack up our belongings and go. I woke up around 10 a.m., completely confused as to where I was. The dream was so vivid that I was fully expecting to wake up in my own bed, not back in the guest room of that house. I told my fiancé about it because it had shook me up a bit. I ended up laying awake in bed until I decided I needed to go and start cleaning up the mess from the night before. A little while later, W, C, and my fiancé all ended up joining me in the living room. We were all talking about the night before, and I decided to tell W and C about my weird dream. When I started describing the woman from my dream, W's face went pale. He asked me for a few more details before he looked at me and simply said,
"My step-grandmother died in this house."
At first I thought he was kidding, until he pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. There she was, the woman from my dream, dressed up and posed lovingly next to W's grandfather. Apparently she was from Mississippi and had a thick accent as well. He asked me to imitate how she said his name in my dream, and laughed a little, saying that it sounded exactly like her. I was a bit freaked out, so I helped finish cleaning up our mess and then drove my fiancé and I home. So, ma'am, I'm sorry that we made your grandson sick from drinking, and thank you for letting us stay in your house. But please, don't scare me like that again. So, recently I remembered being told this as a child, and I must share it. My grandmother is very elderly now. She suffers from dementia and struggles to remember anything in detail. I am very close to her and have visited her every week since I was a child. She would always tell me things about her past back when her memory was more intact. Her father was the only person she could confide in, and he passed shortly after she married in the 1960s. Shortly after he had died, she had a stretch where she would dream of him every night. He would be sat in his chair with his dog by his side. My grandmother would walk in and sit beside him. He would then tell her the same things every night. Firstly, he would take a calendar with 2 dates circled and show her them. He would then go and tell her how he was waiting, but he didn't know what for. And that when someone dies there are a series of tasks they must complete, and his was to help people cross over to the other side. She'd have the exact same dream every night for about a week and then never saw him again. A few months later, she got a call from her mother saying a close family friend and a good friend of her father's was dying, and he wanted to see her and her mother before he died. They got to the house and entered the bedroom, and he was not in a good way. His breathing was very weak, and he was grimacing in pain. There was a priest in the room along with his wife who was comforting him. Not long after they had entered, the atmosphere changed in the room. Suddenly, the dying man stopped grimacing and relaxed, and reached out to hold his wife's hand. The temperature cooled in the room, and a general atmosphere of peace fell over the house. The man then passed away. Immediately, my grandmother felt her father had done what he had described in the dream, and even his wife commented on a presence she felt when he passed. This may all seem like a coincidence. However, this was where the calendar came in with the 2 dates underlined. The first date was the 1st of May. On the 1st of May 1986, my grandmother's mother died after frequently claiming that someone was waiting for her on the other side. The second date was the 16th of August. On the 16th of August 1995, my grandmother's husband died. I accept that this all seems far-fetched, but my grandmother never made things up, and I always remember her relaying this to me in great detail every time I told her I had a strange dream. I'd like to think that her dad will help her cross over onto the other side when her time comes, although I suspect he was waiting for his wife all that time, and that he's helped enough people cross over to the other side. So, I used to work as a warehouse associate at my local Sears department store. It was a pretty good job actually, in that we had a lot of fun and a decent amount of downtime most days, and I was friends with all my coworkers. But we used to have some bizarre experiences there. Here's the eeriest for me personally. We had our normal warehouse in the back of the store where all the big items like toolboxes, treadmills, and appliances, etc. were stored. But we also had perimeter stock rooms, which were small rooms maybe as big as a walk-in closet in most cases. They were always with their respective departments and typically just held clothes or small toys. There was a central stock room, though, that gave us the creeps. This stockroom was divided into 2 sections. One section was where we kept our signs, which connected to the storeroom for the shoes, and you could walk from the appliances department and exit in shoes or vice versa. But there was a chain link fence and shelving dividing the room down the middle. The other side only had one way in and out. This small separate section just held clothes for the children's department. The door for this area was down a short hallway. If you walked towards the door but turned left, the hallway dead-ended to the men's bathroom. When you walked into the stockroom, the wall was on the right, where there were shelves on the left. You had to walk all the way to the end of the shelf, almost to the other side of the room, before you could turn the corner and access the rest of the shelves. We often played rock, paper, scissors to see who would have to stock clothes alone in there, as both sections of the room were a bit creepy, what with their dim motion-activated lights. It also didn't help that we scared each other in there a lot. The door was heavy and loud, so you always knew it as soon as someone came in. Often when my coworkers walked in, I'd stand on the other side of the shelf and reach through the clothes and grab them before they spotted me. This particular day, I was there doing inventory when I heard the doorknob turn and click. In hindsight, I never heard the door fully open, but I instantly prepped myself to scare whoever walked in by standing at the end of the next shelf over. This way, when they turned the corner, I could jump forward and I'd be right in their face, scaring them thoroughly. I saw the top of someone's head, just above the hanging clothes, bobbing as they walked. The hair color and height seemed to indicate that it was my coworker Jake, who had gotten me good with the scares just recently. I waited until he was at the end of the shelf and jumped, yelling some nonsense, and instantly shut my mouth. There was no one there, and the door was shut and latched. I stood there confused for about 10 entire seconds when the door opened and Jake actually walked in. He made some quip about me seeing a ghost and then stopped laughing when he saw how freaked out I was. I made sure he didn't somehow come in spite of knowing that it was impossible. I'd watched the person walk all the way in to the end of the shelves and timed my jump perfectly so that I should have been directly in their way. If someone had turned and ran out, I would have watched them do it and heard the heavy door open and slam shut from the weight. Jake assured me that he hadn't come in before now, and then paused a moment, also looking freaked out. He then said,
Dude, Irene actually found a guy dead in this hallway before.
Irene was the assistant store manager. Before that, her 12-year tenure included being a shoe associate, and then the warehouse supervisor. We found her and asked her about what happened. Apparently years ago, while she was still in shoes, she'd been walking back to the storeroom I was in, when she glanced to her left and saw a man lying outside the men's bathroom, blue and still. Apparently, on a nice slow day when there were minimal customers, the poor guy had a heart attack and died in the hallway in the restroom. Irene also told us about a time where she was in the connected shoe stockroom, and the lights began flickering before one of the sliding shelves laddered rolled down the line on its own. So, I don't know exactly what I saw in that stockroom, but I know for sure I saw it. And the corroborating evidence and stories from many other employees at Sears only solidifies my belief that it was not any of my coworkers playing some impossible prank on me. I don't work there anymore, but we all had bizarre experiences in the stockroom and warehouse. I made sure to tell some of the newer employees all the good stories before I quit for a different job. I always wonder if anything else strange ever happened in there. It's been divided into 2 parts now, a Dunham Sports and an Aldi grocery store.